Hello, homeschool mamas. I hope your week is going well. You can probably hear the kids doing the dishes in the background. One of them is doing dishes and doing some video research on how to take care of goats. So before I share with you what my son is doing, because I had a revelation this weekend about something that I heard through another person's podcast, Robin Robertson at Honey, I'm Homeschooling the Kids. So before I share about that, I wanted to let you know that yesterday that I posted about, I call it Homeschooling Counselling 101. It is about what parents need to know in order to manage conflicts, deal with complaining, deal with all the stuff that really makes homeschooling unfun. There is a much longer post that I have on my blog, Capturing the Charm Life, that is related to the content of yesterday's Instagram post. But just to keep it real, I found that yesterday was a day that I was really dealing with that stuff. And it's both reminder to me that I'm in the thick of it still. I'm still in the trenches, that I have my hard days too. I'm still in the stability boot thing, and I'm getting around without crutches, but one hip is tired of over-managing the other one. And as much as I try to walk on my foot, because I'm determined that I will walk and get outside and walk my dog, I can't, and I have to accept it. So I find random places to sit around the house, on the veranda, in the sun today, which was beautiful. And I'm also finding workouts on the yoga mat, which I will be doing right after this. And still learning how to get my heart rate up and learning how to actually feel like I burned off some mental tension, because that's my ultimate goal in exercising. But now I'm learning I've got abs. Who knew? So as I am experiencing this week, I'm realizing that yesterday's post is extremely applicable to me. The things that I've learned the most about Counseling 101 for kids, or for homeschool parents with kids, because we don't usually have a homeschool without kids, is that we need to acknowledge their feelings, which means we're acknowledging our feelings first, and that we know how to engage our own feelings, to accept them, to sit with them, to reframe them when we need to, and just to simply be able to be our own best friend and be kind to ourselves, sometimes even to act like a well-argued lawyer towards ourselves, because we are hell-bent some days on believing the things that are really not true, or believing the things that are really counterproductive to living a contented life, a purposeful life, a not doubt-filled life, or a not overwhelmed life, or you fill in the blank, a not anxious life, a not depressed life. Whatever it is, sometimes we really need to work hard as a well-trained lawyer to ourselves to say, yo, the way you're thinking isn't working, so let's talk. So it's really useful for us to first accept that we have those feelings, we have those days, those down days, and we have to do something with them. And when we do that, we naturally default to hearing our kids. So in the areas that I know I have the hardest time hearing my kids, the same areas I have the hardest time accepting myself, my own feelings. You feel me? And it's a process. A couple days ago, I saw a most fascinating post on Instagram. I loved it. I wish I'd memorized it, but it said something like, the biggest gift that we can give our kids is to heal all the unhealed parts of us. And I say yes and amen, and that's absolutely true, because the biggest thing that we can give them is not an education that comes in the context of a textbook or a workbook or in an experience or social opportunities. It's not that. It is actually learning how to engage our emotions and others' emotions. However, I don't know about you, but I have yet to find the time in my parenting journey where I have figured that out. And I'm actually ready to give them the full me and all my healed glory. It's not a thing. We are still in process as we're homeschooling, which makes this homeschooling thing kind of, challenging at times, having to actually deal with our own internal stuff. So that is what my thought about yesterday's post was. It had a lot of response. I mistakenly attached it to my own personal Facebook page and got a very interesting engagement there as well. And understandably, because that is a challenge that every homeschool parent experiences. The one thing we would live without, right? I would give up chocolate. No, I wouldn't. I would give up coffee for that. I will suffer for chocolate. So I was going to share with you about that, but I had a conversation a week ago with Gabe Cox from Red Hot Mindset. I love Gabe. She's my new friend. I think I actually have this podcast community just so that I can chat with people that I think that I would like. And I'm right. I'm usually right. And I love Gabe Cox. I had a great conversation, and I was not on it that day. I was not on it. I felt like, oh man, should I reschedule this? Because I'm just so not clear and fresh, and I have kind of like a negative bent today. And then I decided, no, I'm talking to Gabe. First of all, I'm talking to Gabe, and she actually is a coach for this exact purpose and has dealt with some serious stuff herself. So she knows how to relate and engage. Ironically, she actually broke her ankle before she was going into the Boston Marathon. So my story is pretty soft, pretty lightweight compared to hers. And she's had many experiences. She talks about depression. We talk about obviously challenging our mindsets, challenging our thoughts. We go all over the place. This one is like, you have to listen to this conversation. I love this conversation. And I only deleted one thing in the edit because it was getting annoying how many times I was losing my train of thought. But I kept one of those moments just to keep it real. And for you also to see that I'm keeping it real, because I'm a real homeschool mom, and I'm here to help you turn your challenges into your charms, because me too. I'm also in that place of turning my challenges into my charms. But more importantly, I want to encourage you. So if you're not seeing that I'm for real, that I'm a real homeschool mom with my own challenges, then like, do you believe it? Of course not. So this is me. I'm real. I just happened to put on a blouse instead of the pajama shirt that I had on before. Still wearing my yoga pants. You can't see that. Maybe you can see that I have to wash my hair. But first, I'm going to exercise. So anyways, get to that podcast, because just grab a cup of tea and sit in a cozy place, or lock yourself in the bathroom, or go outside, or lock yourself in the car, something, and just spend a few minutes listening, because I found it really encouraging, and I know you will too. And the other thing, okay, so I'm going to go back to my first conversation point. This morning, I'm thinking, okay, I don't really feel like doing studies this morning. Don't feel like writing. I don't feel like doing all my normal stuff. I was just kind of feeling out of sorts, underslept. My husband got called in the middle of the night for an epidural, so it interrupted my sleep. Somebody asked me once, what's it like to be married to a doctor? And I'm like, I've not been married to anybody else, so I don't know. I'm not sure. But I get woken up in the middle of the night to hear about other people getting epidurals, and I never slow my husband down, because I'm like, go do it. Okay, so I wasn't feeling my greatest this morning, but I didn't feel like writing. I didn't feel like doing studies. But you know what I did do? Took my own advice. Always useful. I am writing a How to Homeschool 101 course right now. That's going to be the simple title for it right now, because I have to come up with something more clever. What it really is about is for a new homeschool parent, or somebody that's in the early stages of homeschooling, how they can be clear, confident, and have a real strong vision for their homeschool. I learned this weekend when I was listening to Robin Robinson doing a 3-way webinar with Judy Arnell from Unschooling to University and Golda, don't remember her name. And so the three of them were chatting about unschooling. They were chatting about all things learning and self-directed learning and homeschooling. And I realized that I want to declare that I'm an unschooler. I have spent 6 months unschooling way back in the day, but I am not an unschooler. I'm not an unschooler. I accept myself. I am not an unschooler. However, homeschoolers, traditional homeschoolers, do not look at me and say, you are a traditional homeschooler, because I do not do things the way that I did in the beginning. I am no longer following Susan Wise Bauer's tome, The Well-Trained Mind. In fact, I've heard she doesn't either, but it's an amazing book of resources and ideas. And I am also not a Charlotte Mason homeschooler, but I love the great outdoors, and I do all sorts of languages, and I do things in 15-minute bursts, and I've done everything, and I think all the philosophies I've done and dabbled in all the different homeschool philosophies, and I think they all have value. I could call myself eclectic because that would be easy, but I think reality check, the closest thing I can honestly say that I am, is that I'm child-directed. Child-directed, but also I want to sprinkle me into the homeschool. I learned this weekend that I am not a true unschooler, and I accept that. But I created this course for the purpose of helping any homeschool family, whatever your philosophy, to get confident and clear and have a strong sense of vision to whatever homeschooling process you want to participate in. Now that is what I want to do. So I took my own advice this morning in one of the 40 videos that I've put together for this. It's about, I think, 6 hours of video content and maybe 40 units. But there's one unit that I talk about pursuing the learning opportunities, going after your child's learning opportunities, the things that they love to do when they're not on a screen. Because I am that mom. I'm not going to encourage you to get your kids on a screen. So you can talk to me until we are blue in the face, but I've been there, done that, locked in. May or may not be right. But this is how I'm approaching it right now. So when your child is not on a screen, what do they like to do? Write it down. We should be writing this stuff down, paying attention to what they like to do, no matter what their age. And then getting ourselves trained to think, does that represent a school subject? Like, could we consider that math or drama or science or history or whatever school subject you're familiar with? It's a useful process because it really helps us understand our kids are learning. They're learning. We have to get away from thinking like a school subject. We need to get away from that. Even though I've been in this for 15 years, so I'm surely not going to wipe that from my mind. So then I think in school subjects still, but I don't want to force a school subject or a school schedule or a traditional homeschool schedule even, because I've been there, done that. And it is, in my experience, a way to make myself feel very unhappy as a homeschooler and my kids. So this morning I took my advice, and though I had in my mind 5 or 6 things that I thought maybe my son would do, and but I'm following his instinct, his direction in it, but I don't do the screen time. I'm going to tell you more in the course how I actually do this. But he was really interested in a conversation we had yesterday. We were talking about goat breeds and what kind of goats we would raise. And so this morning he woke up and I heard him talking to Violet, our Great Pyrenees, in the front entry, and saying, what kind of goats would you like to take care of? And he was talking to his older sister about it, who was trying to do her expository essay and not interested. And then I said, okay, do you want to do research on this? And yeah, of course he does. He loves doing research. And he said, but how are we going to build them a place fast enough? Because if we get them into the middle of April, we have no place to put them. And right now our homestead still has at least a foot of snow. It hasn't melted. I can't walk. How are we going to build this thing? And so he spent the morning researching how to actually build something. And this kiddo, if you know him, he's just mechanical engineering minded. He's always building something. And also helped my husband this last week, who isn't, but build something, a tool thing on the side of the chicken coop. So then he got down to work and he actually did some research on how to actually build a foundation and a goat shelter for 2 goats, maybe 4 goats. He's actually figured out what we need inside the goats. He knows exactly what kind of minerals they need to eat, what could cause bloat, and what could prevent pneumonia. I could go so many different directions, things that he told me that he did research on. So he's written down a drawing or a design of what we're expecting to do. He thinks that we're in over our heads, that we're probably trying to choose something that we probably can't really build, that maybe we should ask someone else to build it. But my husband and I so far are pretty determined we can figure this out. So anyways, he spent the morning still doing it even while he's doing the dishes. He's got something playing in the background. He's trying to do some research on how to build a goat shelter. He asked me, could you please do the plans for the goat fence? Because if you know about goats, we definitely need a fence. So we got a lot of work ahead of us. And I could have said, yeah, but you need to do your math review. I want us to finish this math workbook. We follow a Math UC thing. And we do all sorts of other math things. His dad really wants him to do some research on Bitcoin, if you know anything about Bitcoin mining. So he's got that as a possible project. I definitely have this international postcards thing that I want him to do. A lady in Russia who likes Harry Potter, works like Harry Potter, my son's in. So, there's doing that, and he's got an ancient Egyptian history, civilization research thing. He's got a book about Canadian history that my second daughter had taken a college course in, and he started reading that, and he's been doing that all year. He's got lots of projects on the go. And then I decided I need to stop. I need to let him take his little rabbit trail to the thing that he wants to do right now. Because if there is anything that we need to do, is to facilitate those moments where we see that there's a light in the child's eye. They are excited about something. That means they're locked in that learning. If you did a test at the end of the week and you quizzed him on whatever he's doing in math right now, I should be able to tell you. Okay, but I could have told you last Friday. But if, say, my daughter is doing parabolas, and she recently did polynomial review, and so if he were to be reviewed or tested on that, I don't think that he would come out at 100%. But when it comes to all this discussion on goat shelters and goat design development, he's locked in. He's got that in here. Is it a valuable tool in an education? Does it replace a day where you're doing language arts studies or math studies or history or science? That's the question. Okay, obviously, I believe it does. But in this course that I share, I go into discussions that are the questions under the questions, the things that make us as homeschool parents go, is what I'm doing enough? Am I doing enough to provide them an education? Is it good enough? Is it comparable to a schooled system? Is there a way that I can provide an education for them that actually will enable them to do what they're meant to do later, or to get into a post-secondary school, or to get a diploma, or whatever you think is important? Okay, so my question for you is, if you have been watching this far, if you are a new homeschooler or a fairly recently new homeschooler, and if you are somebody that maybe is still interested in this even as a veteran homeschooler, could you check, or could you ask me for the link of a page which is really just an introductory page to this course, and I will send it to you, and you tell me, does this seem like stuff that would be applicable to you, stuff that would actually help you gain clarity, confidence, and vision? If it is, then comment down below and I'll send you the link. So, Nottingham, hi. Would you talk on an example of projects for 2-year-olds? Well, the beauty, and I said this in my course, I go into more discussion about preschool. Preschool is not as hard as we'd like to say it is. We just have to recognize the learning opportunities. So I've said this before, that there's certain kids that are really precocious. I had a 3-year-old that read. She whole word read. I had a 6-year-old that decided to read, and then within the next year did Harry Potter, or read Harry Potter. 2-year-olds play. They were meant to play. We simply, as homeschool parents, need to accept that 2-year-old is learning as they're playing. There are books coming out right now that focus on child development and help us understand that 2-year-olds' goals are to play. And I would go further and say that I think the majority of our real learning, our true learning, happens when we're playing, even as full-grown adults. So there are times where we are adults and we need to know something or take a certificate or do a degree or do a something, so that we need to learn something to get to the next step. But we do that because we're motivated. Like my website design. I don't want to do it right now. I'm told I should really update it. Okay, but I really don't want to do it. But I know that the next step for me to expand and get to know other people better, the first thing they're going to see is my website, and they're going to say, doesn't look that good. Except that I don't want to learn it. I don't care about this. But it is the next step to the next step I want to do in homeschool coaching. So if I'm doing that, if I'm accepting that there are certain steps that I need to take, then I go do it even when it's not fun. But a 2-year-old just wants to have fun. So facilitate their fun. Make sure you have eyeball to eyeball time during the day where you really are fully engaging them. You'll be surprised that if you're exhausted by them, because 2-year-olds are lovely but sometimes exhausting, that giving them a little bit of real emotional connection time, you can actually let them go play. Within 10-15 minutes, they are off doing their own thing oftentimes. Not all kids are the same. But if you give them real eyeball to eyeball time, they will wander away, and then you'll be on your own to do your other things as well. And the other thing is to read to them a lot. And that's not a formula. It's just you want them to get familiar with words and get interested in reading, then just read to them. And it can be whatever they're interested in, whatever you're interested in. There is really no necessary prescription. There doesn't have to be teaching with math manipulatives at that age, but you could pull out a bunch of something that isn't going to go up their nose. So I'm thinking you could get a bunch of, I don't know, Legos. Can you do Legos with a 2-year-old? Probably not. But if you're engaging them at the time and you're not walking away, you could use some Legos or Smarties or beans or something, maybe a little bit bigger blocks of some sort, and then ask them about counting. You could show 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but it's not necessary because they will do that. All these things they will do. Letter recognition, they will do. No rush. 2-year-olds will learn on their own time. I hope that helped, and if you have more questions, you're always welcome to throw them at me. But this course is designed for the new homeschoolers, the ones that are interested in maybe homeschooling in the future. And if you have thoughts on how this page could maybe help other new homeschoolers understand a little bit more about what homeschooling really is about, or address the questions that you really do have, because the things that I think you probably want to know might not be the things you actually want to know. And I'm 15 years in, my youngest is 12. I kind of forget what it's like to have a 2-year-old. Kind of. Jen, another gal that I'm going to be interviewing next week on the podcast, had the most hilarious meme I think I've ever seen, except for all of that stuff last year with the president. That was pretty funny. But she said, do you remember the first bowel movement you had postpartum? Yes, I said it. Can you remember that? Yes, you can, because it was memorable. And on that note, why was I saying that? Okay, that was a very memorable moment. It's a good thing that I brought that up right now and then I forgot. Okay, so anyways, there are certain things that you definitely don't forget when you've had a baby and a 2-year-old. Or, like I said in my friend, or in Gabe's podcast interview yesterday, I had a 2-year-old that locked me out of the house, so she got into the pantry and stole the marshmallows. I watched her through the window, and she did it on purpose. Smart kid. Anyways, I hope you're having a good day. Let me know if you'd like a link, and I'll send you that link so you can give me honest feedback about how you think this would be useful or not useful for a homeschool mom. We'll talk to you soon.